G'day people, George Louie here on the 2nd of April 2026. Second, number 2. That becomes important, I'll tell you why. But I'm here to report to you. Hello. I'm here to give you a message of hope here today. Alright, right now as you watch this, there are 4 people on the way to the moon. That's right, Artemis 2. The first crew mission to travel that far from Earth in more than 50 years. It's been a mighty long time. I hope they'll make it. We've had a lot of bad news lately. The wars, the cost of living crisis, families doing harder than they should. Really hard. But 4 people heading into the dark feels like something worth pausing for, isn't it? Really. But here's what keeps coming back to me, because I love the spacey things. So it's not just the launch, but what those 4 people will do with what they find when they get there. That is, they won't land, but they're going to just swing around it. The last time human beings were in lunar orbit, it was Christmas Eve 1968. Yes, Apollo 8 if I recall. So 3 men, Bill Anders, Jim Lovell, Frank Borman, orbiting the moon. Before Neil Armstrong landed, of course, looking down at the Earth, rising over the lunar surface. Yeah, a famous photograph there. It was a fragile, luminous thing hanging in absolute blackness, and the only response any of them could reach for was to open the book of Genesis and read it live to the largest television audience in recorded history. And that's more than 500 million people heard those words. Oh yes, this is what he says in the scriptures. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. From the moon. Now, early in the job, I attended an induction meeting run by the business owner. Maybe 20 of us was around the table, maybe a little bit more. It was a standard icebreaker session. They asked, you have to go around, and they asked, who do you admire most? Well, I remember people, they named politicians, sports athletes, movie stars, just the typical predictable answers. Wow, I wonder what's that? Now when my turn came, I said JC. Pretty pathetic, right? Not Jesus Christ, but JC I said. Yeah, because I looked around that room, felt the weight of 20 strangers, and decided that JC sounded pretty cool enough to be ambiguous. Clever, I thought it was safe, you know, no one would laugh at me. I thought about that since that moment, because Jesus Christ is the creator of the universe, and he deserved better from me in that room than a set of initials I offer up because I feel their scorn. That's not a way to go, is it? I wasn't proud of it looking back. Now Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, he had a version of this too. But larger in scale, obviously, and quieter in consequence. He took communion privately on the lunar surface during Apollo 11. And he later came to regret publicizing it. Not because he doubted the act, but because he felt he hadn't represented everyone back on Earth. He wanted to include people. You know, he wanted to represent, he felt that he didn't represent the Jews, the Muslims and so on, right? Okay, that's his opinion. Now, I'll still come back to Luke 9, chapter 26. And this is what the verse says. Whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed. Didn't say that there was a demand for performance. It was just an honest accounting of what it costs to stay quiet when you actually know something is true. And at this point I want to ask you, if this makes sense to you at all, if you ever had this experience or you know someone who had it, put on the comment there. And don't forget while you're here, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I promise I'll do more. Alright, now here's what Paul writes to Colossians, chapter 1 verses 15 to 17. This will solidify what I was talking about way earlier. It says, He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and the invisible. Whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in all things hold together. Now read that last phrase slowly. It says, in him all things hold together. It didn't say not some things, not the things we've mapped and named and sent spacecraft to photograph. No. All things. And all things includes...
She's just feeling the pressure.
A lot of people get excited here. All things include the moon, right? The mathematics that allow a rocket to leave Earth today and arrive somewhere close to 400,000 kilometers away, on schedule. It's about the orbital mechanics, the physics governing every atom in the bodies of the 4 people inside a spacecraft right now, about to launch. So in him all things hold together. Now I've seen a small piece of that with my own eyes, literally. You're gonna like this. It's so memorable to me. So it was school holidays in Singapore. My wife and the kids and I were just walking along, going out for a day. Didn't have any particular plan, really no particular else to be. But I spotted a queue forming outside a building. Now I cannot walk past the queue without knowing what's it for, right? Because I'm a curious George. Turns out it was an open observatory. So a real telescope available to the public for one evening only, I believe. Now I turned to my family and we were joining that queue. Good family. The length of it was not a negotiation point. I just got to do it. So we waited and finally my turn came. And the astronomer positioned me at the eyepiece, looking like this, right? Hey, Saturn. What I saw was a tiny little blue sphere. The ring, it was unmistakably, undeniably the ring. It really was. It wasn't a photograph. It was the actual planet right there in front of my eyes in the dark. Here at the equator of the Earth, I could see it. And I started asking questions, lots of them, technical questions, historical questions, any questions I could produce because participants were only allowed a short moment at the eyepiece and I needed more of it. The astronomer answered everything. He was really a patient man. But at some point in that exchange, I suspect he saw exactly what I was doing because I had clearly been there longer than anyone else in the queue. That's the way it is, right? And when I finally stepped back, he gave me a look I recognized. Yep. He wasn't rude. Just having a bit of fun, isn't it? A bit of banter. Now, I'm not proud of this, but I'm also not apologizing for it. That night has stayed with me, as you can see, right? From the excitement in my voice. Because standing at that eyepiece, every intellectual argument I had ever encountered about whether any of this means anything, it felt beside the point. You cannot look at Saturn's ring through a telescope in the dark and conclude it assembled itself through processes that had nothing to say. Like some random process that it came into form. Honestly. And here's what physicists and cosmologists will tell you if you ask carefully. The universe is not just large and old and impressive. It's actually calibrated, right? The constant governing how matter behaves are precise to tolerances so fine that the slightest variation produces not a different universe, nothing at all. Not different life, nothing. That's not a theological argument. I don't think so. That is just pure data, right? Scientists argue what it means. They're still arguing. They do not argue about what it shows. And in the passage I said, in him all things hold together. So remember, Bill Anders looked at the Earth from the moon and reached for Genesis. He wasn't performing, he was reporting. And my manager at a previous job had a tradition in weekly Tuesday meetings. Here's another story I'm coming through. He'll open with a film quote and the team had to name that movie. One week I gave an answer that involved Michael J. Fox. You know Michael J. Fox? He starred in the Back to the Future movies. Great movie. My team leader thought that was ridiculous. Michael J. Fox in a war film? Are you nuts? Anyway, guess what? After the meeting, Greg was his name. He researched it and I was right. I was right. He wouldn't admit it, but yeah, he wouldn't admit it, but I said fair enough, and we just moved on. Now, knowing something is true and letting the evidence speak without making a scene, that's fine. Sometimes that's exactly right thing to do. But knowing who made the universe and offering 2 initials because, I said JC, because you don't want 20 strangers to think less of you, yeah, that's kind of a different quiet entirely. Jesus said very plainly, whoever is ashamed of me and of my words. Right? So remember, the Artemis crew will not arrive at the moon and find evidence against Genesis. They will not be touching down. I'm sure they will find what Anders found, what the physicists already find in the data, what I found through an eyepiece in Singapore, while a patient astronomer waited for me to finish my questions. Again, as usual, my friends, you don't need a rocket or queue outside an observatory to be confronted with clear evidence. You just need to say what you actually know is true by its full name, right? To me, that full name is Jesus Christ. So I'm going to go. I'm going to ask you, what's the most awe-inspiring part of creation that has ever stopped you in your track? Put that in a comment. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me. It's another wonderful day. It'll be Easter Friday tomorrow, Good Friday. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.